Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about mass, specifically in-place mass versus a family of mass. And what Revit thinks of this is, or at least the analogy I use with students often is kind of like if you've ever made a paper mache sculpture like a bust or head or something. Most often you would use chicken wire or a balloon or something, and then you would wrap the balloon or the chicken wire with paper mache, right? Revit's version of that is mass. And so I'm going to show you, this is a two-part series, mass and then mass with curtain system or curtain family. So I'm going to show you both of those, but mass specifically and in-place mass. So what we're looking for, or what we're looking at, is in the architecture tab. Notice that there is no mass tool, right? Or no mass selection. So we're going to skip through this ribbon from architecture to structure, steel, precast, system, all the way down to massing and site. Now there's a few options. You can in-place mass, which is what we're going to do today, or you can place mass, which is one that you've already created that you're going to use over and over again. For today's purpose, and this again is just intended to show you very basic geometries, very basic manipulations. But for today's purpose, we're going to do in-place mass. And as always, you can select F1 once you have your tool highlighted, and it'll give you more information about how to use that tool. So let's get going with this. So the first warning message is going to tell you, or information message is going to tell you that Revit has enabled the show mass mode. Think of it like X-ray. You can see X-ray. You can see through walls, windows, and doors to see the mass. So that mode is enabled. And then it's going to ask us, well, what do you want to call this? Mass 1 is fine for today. Now, all of my choices have changed. The ribbon went away, and now I simply have the very basic tool set. It is very similar to model component in place, so you might recognize some of the tools from that exercise. So the difference being, though, is when you model in place a component, you're modeling the thing that will be fixed, right? So here we have a couple extra steps. So the first being, and this is the way I do it. Again, there's 100 ways to do everything in Revit, but this is the way I do it. So the first step is I'm just going to make a simple geometry using the rectangle tool. And it's asking me what plane I want to make that geometry on. So notice that I can choose a plane that's already established, like level 1. I can draw on a face of an existing surface. I can draw on the work plane, which is essentially what we're doing. And I can also set the work plane. I'm going to explain this later when I show you how to do a void, a mass in the void as well. So for right now, I'm just simply going to draw in this work plane on this surface a simple geometry. Okay. Now, before I hit Finish Mass, I'm going to go to a 3D view. And I'm going to show you that it is just, well, I have a floor there, so that's not helpful. But it is just a 2D plane. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to delete this floor. I'm going to delete these floors. Okay, there's my mass, right? So I hit the green check mark, which means I completed the task as far as Revit was concerned. But that doesn't mean I'm done, right? Obviously, it's not three-dimensional. So I'm going to select the mass one more time and hit Edit in Place. Now I can get back into it and manipulate it in some way. So I can toggle these shapes. I can do a bunch of different things. So the first thing I'm going to show you is just a simple extrusion. So select this line work, and you'll notice that when nothing's selected, this tool set's pretty basic. It's the one we started with. When I select the closed polygon, and this is important, it must be a closed polygon, similar to SketchUp in that way. When I select the closed polygon, I can then do Create Form. So I'm going to create a solid form. Now notice I have some options, right? currently this surface, the extrusion, is 20 feet. I can change that to 30 feet or whatever my heart desires. And then similarly, I can choose each plane and manipulate that plane after the fact. So it's pretty helpful that way. I'm going to choose this plane one more time and change that to 30 by 40 box, right? Now, just like I can choose planes, right, by hovering over it, I can also choose lines. So I can manipulate this specific line and change the geometry. And that goes for any line. Using the toggles, which is the blue toggle for the Z or the vertical, green toggle for, depending on your perspective, horizontal or an X direction, and the red toggle for a Y direction, depending on your perspective. But again, I can do those sorts of manipulations. I can also manipulate just the point, right? In the same way, I can drag and shape this thing in such a way as to create an interesting form. So I think that's pretty useful. So I'm actually going to leave that form, and I'm going to draw a new geometry. But this time, I'm going to draw a geometry that is based on this plane, because we didn't affect that plane. It's still an XY plane. So I'm going to hit the rectangle tool, and this time I'm going to set my work plane to be that one. Okay. So now if I draw geometry, it'll be on that plane. And notice how it drew the vertical and not the horizontal. I'm going to select that geometry, and this time choose a void form. For those of you familiar, that's kind of like the Boolean operation, but it's much more powerful, and I'm going to explain why here in a second. So I'm going to choose void form, and I'm going to lengthen that void so it cuts automatically without having to do anything else, which I think is pretty strong. I can choose just that plane and manipulate just that plane. Similarly, I can choose just that edge again, right? So I'm going to choose, and I'm tabbing through, by the way. So if I select just that line, I'm tabbing through to get this, to manipulate that geometry. See what it's doing? So it's creating an interesting shape form. Now, if I decided that, in actuality, what I really wanted to manipulate was the void form, I can do that too. So I'm going to tab through to select the void form, and then I'm going to hit Edit Profile, and I'm going to select this plane, actually this one right there. I'm going to change this profile to something like that. Trim that up because it needs to be a single closed polygon. Hit OK, and now I've manipulated the void form, right? And it automatically made the cut. So I'm going to choose that plane of the void form, pull that out a little bit longer, and I get that nice cut. So very, very helpful in that way. All right. Now I've finished the mass. I can move this mass wherever I want. I can also toggle some of these things and continue to manipulate the shape, right? So I think that's all very helpful without creating new Boolean operations. But if I decided to go back and edit in place and select the void form again, I can simply delete it, and the mass is back to the way it was. So that's the true power of this particular tool. Just like Rhino and SketchUp, you can make really, really interesting shapes just by pushing and pulling and manipulating lines and points. But unlike those, once you've made a Boolean operation, unless you make copies, you're sort of stuck with that. Where in Revit, you're not stuck with it. You can change it and delete it and create new ones and do that over and over and over again. Actually, there is a limit. At some point, the model will break, but you have to go pretty far to break it. Thanks for watching. If you found this video valuable, please like and share it with others. If you're not already a subscriber, I invite you to subscribe to my channel by selecting the profile picture below. This will take you to my channel with videos like these and many others on topics such as Revit, SketchUp, analog tools, and videos such as these in the playlist next to you that are specific to this topic. Have a great rest of your day.